Tonight, we suggest some New Year's resolutions for apologists. Some Christians give their own ideas about New Year's resolutions. And Dan and Zod take a look back at the exciting year of 2023, which just so happens to be the year that gave us Zodanza. Hello, everybody. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Season's greetings. We're still in the season of many holidays. So season's greetings. Zod, how are you?
Good. I see you're still waging that war on Christmas.
I am waging the war on Christmas for two specific reasons that comes to mind. One is I was working in my robe today, as you do when you work from home, and I was like, I have to change out of this because I'm going to do Zodanza. But then I thought, just because Christmas is over doesn't mean the season is over. We haven't had New Year's. Pretty sure Kwanzaa hasn't started yet. Not too sure about that one. Didn't look it up, but it's still kind of a winter season. So I'm sticking with the robe for this episode. And I forgot what the second reason was. So yeah, mostly I just want to wear my robe today.
Also, I'm hearing rumors that you had your septum pierced and that it looks good. So
I got my septum pierced and I got my bottom lobe redone, and then another lobe on top done. So thank you for noticing. I went to a Christian tattoo parlor shop to get this done. But that's a story maybe for later tonight because it was really funny. But more on that later. But thanks.
You're welcome. She says, I'm sure. So chat's probably starting out a little slow. Reason for that is I, like a cotton-headed ninny muggins, forgot to put the show up this morning or this afternoon during my lunch break.
Yeah, but that means this is for the real ones. That's what this means. This is for the ones who are like, hey, is the show coming on tonight or not? They checked right at the time. They didn't need no bell. They were here. So props to you guys. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for being the real devotees of Zodanza. It was all a little rushed. It was all a little rushed and crazy because of the holiday season and stuff. I was visiting family. I had all my sons up here, which is an unusual treat, and we hung out. And then today we had a busy day at work, and I rushed home and threw stuff together. And you wouldn't even notice except we're talking about it. So good job, Zod.
You know what? I was going to say, Zod, we were doing all right until you just brought all that up. But I also got to visit people this holiday season. Didn't get back to Austin until Tuesday. And then I also had a very busy day at work. Just got off like 45 minutes ago. So, it's been busy for us. But you know what, folks? We still strive to give you a show tonight because we deliver. Okay, we're about that content creator life here, so we got something for you today. A little end of the year special. Last week was Christmas special. Now we're going to the end of the year, right, Zod?
That's right. Oh, by the way, you want to know what happened on the way home?
What happened on the way home? Did you see?
I saw a moose. No, a moose, even better. Yep.
So was it more than one moose?
No, that would be mooses.
Moose eye. I think we talked.
No, it was just one. I was driving along to my neighborhood and I just saw something dark standing off the side of the road. And whenever you do, you just like slow down, make sure it doesn't dart out in front of you. And
nice. That's good. I've never seen a moose in real life, I don't think. But I've been told that a moose would be my spirit animal. I think mostly due to my large size. So anyway,
Cool.
I think we had something we were gonna do today.
Do they have moose at the zoo in Texas?
I think so. I don't know. I feel like moose-eye, right, are kind of like deer, right? Where it's like not really an animal you keep at a zoo. Or maybe I'm wrong, but
No,
I don't know.
they have a conservation center up here that has moose in them and stuff. They have like, Alaska animals that they're trying to heal up and everything, but they're not really, I don't think, a zoo animal. They're kind of ugly, to be honest.
Damn. Well, okay, I literally just told you it's my spirit animal like 30 seconds ago, and now you're saying it's ugly. So thank you. You just hurt me on a spiritual level right now. Really appreciate that.
Oh, you're
But
welcome.
yeah, let's move on, shall we? We have a couple different things. I don't know what order you want to do this stuff tonight, Zod. What are you thinking? As far as
I do.
Okay.
I am like, I have my heart set on order.
Okay.
So
All right,
first tonight we are going to we think we pretty much have things down. The atheist community is we like we interact well together, we play well with others. I don't think there's really anything to fix on our end. So
yeah, definitely. With the atheist community's never had any problems whatsoever. Famously so. The least problematic community. Yeah, 100%.
At least drama free. Like, I've never heard of atheist community drama.
Oh God, never.
No.
Oh, please. My goodness. We're above that. Okay. Absolutely not.
So since Dan and I couldn't think of anything to work on for ourselves, we decided we would make some New Year's resolution suggestions for apologists, or extend it more broadly to Christians in general.
Yes.
So that's our first segment. It will be probably a little passive aggressive, but
it's
maybe
like we're mansplaining, but as ex-Christians. We're ex-Christian mansplaining. Whatever the word is for that. That's what we're going to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we have a video where some people talk about how Christians should make New Year's resolutions. I'm sure that will be very informative and show us a little glimpse into the mindset of how Christians try to bring about change and what kind of change they think is important. And then finally, we're just going to take a look back across the year, a little bit of a retrospective night. We can talk about things that have happened in the history of our channels. This was a groundbreaking year for Zodanza in that this is when it started.
This is when the ground was broken.
Yes. And I thought it would be fun to look back at some of the new creators who have popped up this year. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I didn't poach some of these people off of Apologia's list, but he compiled, I recognized I had this idea in my head, and he kind of like had a lot of people I'd interacted with or just started noticing this year all in one place. And so why reinvent the wheel when you can not?
Yes.
So that's what we have in store for tonight.
Very good. Very good description of future events here, Zod. I appreciate the listicle. Yeah, I definitely read that list of content. So instead of reading it, though, we're going to present it to you today, starting off with our resolutions. So Zod was like, let's make a resolutions list, a New Year's resolutions list for apologists. And my response was basically, that's great. Can we make it more broad, though? Because apologist to me was a bit of too much of a subcategory. Mine is more Christian focused, although my first one can be applied to apologists as well. And I guess some of them can be applied to apologists, but like, I just have a lot of thoughts about Christian community and Christian response to contemporary issues, because I was a Christian once, and like, I see how it's being handled, and whether there's going to be any Christians watching this that take notes, I doubt it. It's more of a vent for me. I don't know about you, Zod, but you gave me an opportunity to just put some thoughts out into the world, put some good vibes out, and maybe we'll see a difference in the coming year. But I don't know, what was your motivation for this part, Zod?
I thought it sounded fun.
Okay, that's good. What was your idea? So props for you, Zod. But let's see what you got. What kind of resolutions? Let's talk about New Year's resolutions for the Christian apologist community. Okay, what are you cooking?
Okay, So I'll kick things off with a basic one, and this one applies not as specifically to professional apologists as to Christians who want to talk to atheists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this one is something we touched on last time, which is number one, I think that it might be good if they resolve to stop talking to atheists like every basic thing they've heard over the pulpit is going to blow our minds.
True that. Yeah, it is 2023, about to be 2024. We've had the internet for going on 30 years now for most of us. Like, a lot of that stuff's not new, especially for those of us who've been in the community for a minute. Now, granted, I do say this with the caveat of I repeat stuff all the time on shows like Truth Wanted, because there's always going to be new people that are seeing stuff for the first time. But I try to treat my interlocutor with the same knowledge and respect that I would with anybody else. And I don't know if the average Christian apologist essay does the same, but could be wrong. So yeah, good resolution.
Yeah. You know, this doesn't really apply as much to professionals. I think professionals are just there to repeat the same lines over and over again, mostly for their audiences. I'm thinking more of a Christian who thinks if they're going to invite you to church, it'll just instantly change everything for you. Or if they just blurt out, these really basic lines they've heard from church, or if they just think you're exposed to anything. If you read your first Lee Strobel book or come to a worship service, that it'll just you'll see the light and it's just so obvious to anybody. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where I don't think, and I don't mean to be condescending, but it might be a little bit. I think for the most part, your average engaged atheist has seen both sides of this debate and probably seen more of Christianity and more of the Bible from more angles than at least your average Christian. And it feels a little funny when they come at us acting like we've never encountered any basic biblical teaching or any square one, where did the universe come from type argument.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I have seen several atheist commenters who definitely have never actually read the Bible, even though they pretend like they do. So there is kind of a, for every rule, there's an exception, right? Like, I do think you're going to see that, but when it comes to those who are in the discourse space, that's going to be less frequent, right? The ones who actually, like you and me, put their face on the line and put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. That's where you see it less often. And it's weird that there's this pretending like we don't know what we're talking about, or we haven't looked at the things that they quote or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And especially if they know you personally, I think they should know that you, in our cases, we grew up in the faith and we're not seeing everything they show us for the first time. So that's mine. We can pop in your first one first. By the way, we have another suggestion. Stop telling us we weren't real Christians.
That's a great one.
That could be nifty.
It's a very good one, Shannon. You're absolutely right. I actually, one of mine kind of leads into this. And maybe I'll do that one first. Actually, maybe I'll do this one next then. So my resolution is to.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
If any of you have other resolutions you'd like to throw in the chat, just toss it in there, and we'll take a look at yours too. So
here's my resolution. Ready for this?
Yes.
Hot off the presses. Stop pretending that LGBT Christians don't exist. Ooh, I went there. Okay. So here's the thing. I don't identify as a Christian, and I actually think retaining an LGBT identity and a Christian faith does inherently lead to some contradictions, depending on what kind of biblical, if you subscribe to a biblical Christianity, quote unquote, right? I think you inevitably run into that, as long as we're talking about a traditional Christianity. I don't think you're less valid for that. I think you can be a Christian and you can be LGBT, and I will fully support you. Not the Christian part, obviously, but your identity part, your LGBT identity, absolutely. And I understand people make that work. It's the other Christians that won't accept you at the end of the day. And that's what really, really sucks. Because a lot of people have been doing a lot of work in the secular world to make sure LGBT people are recognized. And when you put out an identity that identifies as the oppressor of one of those groups, that being Christianity, you kind of put a bit of a blockage to the work that's been done. It's my prediction that in the future, 50 years from now, LGBT Christians will not only be nominal, but we will see a rewriting of history that will have said, oh, Christianity has always been meant to be accepting towards LGBT people. It's just people had wrong identifications of how to interpret the Bible. Just like every other moral consternation that's been happening since the beginning of Christianity, LGBT issues will be one of them, and we're just on the cusp of seeing some of that. I have read liberal interpretations by biblical scholars of LGBT, like pro LGBT sort of works in the Christian Bible, and I think it's crap. I don't think it's what the original authors intended, but it doesn't matter because people should be treated with the respect that they deserve. But it's the other Christians at the end of the day that you're gonna have to fight with on that, not me and not other folks. If other atheists don't accept that for you, I think that they're assholes, and I think that they should recognize that people's religious identities are much more complicated than what they may initially treat them as. But in short, resolution is recognize that other LGBT Christians exist, and accept and choose to accept them as part of your community, because I'd rather live in that world than live in the one where they're shunned on both sides. You know what I mean? I want people to live their lives and be happy with it, even if it means, obviously taking on at least one of those identities that I've kind of talked a lot about that I don't agree with. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, you make an interesting point about the future. I wonder if, 50 years down the road or so, 100 years, Christianity will not only be accepting of LGBTQ people, but will have basically pioneered acceptance of them just as surely as it pioneered the anti-slavery movement.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to think of.
I truly believe there will be a retcon of history, at least in some circles, of that being the case. 100% believe that. So,
well, I'm really glad to hear that you've brought important, substantial things about the Christian community, whereas I am just like airing my petty, nitpicky grievances with people I argue with online. So, yeah, cool.
Sometimes that's one and the same,
That's true.
Sometimes, I don't know.
The petty grievances, I tell this to people who are somewhat progressive minded, but don't understand why people like us get in the trenches with fundamentalists. And really a lot of the apologetics kind of sets the stage for a lot of the shitty behavior toward people and enables it and gives some kind of groundwork for it.
Yeah.
Totally. I think Paul, he popped in and he disagrees with the premise of what we're doing insofar as he says, I think apologists are doing a great job and they should keep doing exactly like they are with going
no changes or improvements. To be fair, it affects Paul's bottom line that no changes are made from the Christian apologist side. He has a vested interest in Christian apologists staying exactly the same. So,
I think it's quite the opposite, really.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Because, well, one of the challenges of being an atheist YouTuber is coming up with new content. And part of the reason is that they're not giving us anything new to work with, really. How many times do you beat on the same dead horse over and over again? And there are some of us who do it, I think, successfully. And part of that becomes being in tune with where the current conversation is. Like, I don't really debunk as much as I talk about what we hear from them and how the conversation goes back and forth, I think, anyway. Mm-hmm. Paul finds a lot of great angles. A lot of people, I think, kind of have come and gone or shifted their focus just because it's hard to keep talking about it. If Christians would just friggin' give us something new every once in a while, I don't think that would be as much of a problem. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I anticipate that we will get some new things to talk about this next year. I think the world is just changing just enough to see some new things, but probably terrifying and dark things, like things of the human psyche that we shouldn't see. I'm talking about defending awful points of view in new lights, because the Overton window has sort of shifted for the Christian right. But that's for another day. That's for a future season.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think too hard about that, except maybe to have a,
Which brings me to my next
ready to go.
resolution, Zod. Abortion.
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we have stop pretending you can read other people's minds. That's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah. That's a good resolution for folks. My resolution for the Christian community at large, but also for apologists, this is the one that ties most to apologists, I think, is stop saying abortion is a sin. It was one, it's not biblical. It's just not a thing. There is a history within the Catholic Church specifically, obviously, most predominantly, against modern contraceptive methods. But for the vast majority of Christian history, abortion was not treated in the same light that it was today. So why is it somehow a big issue for people today? Why? What makes it that? It is obviously political in nature, I think. And there's complicated reasons as to why that's the case. But if you're an apologist, somebody who supposedly really critically thinks about the Bible and its interpretation in modern society, and also into the evidences in which the Bible presents for your worldview today, you should be the first to say abortion is not a thing the Bible really talks about, and the times that it exclusively doesn't say it's a sin. In fact, kind of says the opposite. So we're seeing an America that's talking a lot about abortion, especially this year, past 2 years, really. And I anticipate apologists will talk more about it because it's on people's minds. I think you should be on the opposite side of that conversation and say, hey, look, at best, Christians are neutral at this, right? Or even, I should say, at worst, Christians are neutral at this. Even better, we should stop treating people like they aren't making huge life choices for themselves that aren't any of our businesses, and maybe shouldn't make it like there's some personal moral wrongdoing, because the Bible doesn't support that actually in any way, shape, or form. So there you go. That's my number 2. Stop calling abortion a sin.
So you're saying that Christians shouldn't basically be tools who let themselves get defined by a wedge issue created by politicians?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's literally what happened. Like even a lot of mainstream conservative denominations were in favor of abortion or didn't think much of it, or at least for abortion rights, until it became basically made the big wedge issue. My former pastor, he gave a big sermon basically telling you to vote for Trump instead of Biden. And he basically rested everything on abortion. It doesn't matter what this person's like, except that, he stands for the lives of the unborn and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, maybe we can do a more full coverage on this show, but there's other places that have talked about this. The history of the anti-abortion movement in its modern form really boils down to 1950s at the earliest, but really at the birth of modern birth control, and taking advantage of it again as a wedge issue. So yeah, there's a lot of history to it there that isn't worth it here. But yeah, it's obviously affecting people's lives. People's opinions on this are directly affecting people's lives. For the worse, might I add. The Christian community is not helping people in their decisions to make abortions. They're actively making people's lives worse. So my resolution is, don't do that, man. Just like chill out, But anyway, that's it. That's the tea. Welcome to my TED Talk.
It coincides with making life just horrid for poor people and minorities, which what do you know?
Yeah. And it turns out some of those just like famously as a stereotype for Christians, the ones who are most the greatest advocates against LGBT people happen to be LGBT themselves, in the same way that people who are the most advocates against abortion have also themselves gotten abortion. So it's hypocrisy all the way down, but we don't even need to get into that.
Cool. You want one of my stupid ones now that you've just been like tearing this one up? All right.
I'll be honest, my 3 are pretty heavy. I didn't realize you were going for the fun route. I was going for the more serious route this time, so that's fine. I'll be the Abbott to your Costello, or whatever.
Yeah, I'll be a little palate cleanser. I'll talk about, stupid online drama. Now, this next one kind of got me thinking of this whole concept. So this was the like frivolous little seed that sprouted Dan's great big rants about Christian society. But here it is. This is what birthed this whole thing. And if you've ever been on social media, including Twitter, something like this might sound familiar. Stop calling everything, including obvious observations and assessments of statements, unverified claims.
Okay.
Have you ever run into that?
Parse that for me a bit. Parse that for me.
So, like in one conversation that came up on Twitter, someone said something really stupid, and this person said that's a dishonest comment, and they said, another unverified claim. And I think basically anything you say, whatever you point. I
remember you showing me this specific thing. Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Anything you point out, or anything that is like a really immediate, intuitive assessment of something, they just point out that it's a claim. And this does a couple things. Number one, it gets you needing to parse out exactly why you said what you said if you take the bait, which it's usually going to be incredibly obvious. And then number two, I think they try to level the playing field so that everything you say is on par with a totally unverified supernatural claim from history. So intuitively, we know exactly why you should be skeptical if someone says somebody rose from the dead thousands of years ago or went around doing miracles or whatever. But if somebody wants to start badgering you about how you verify obvious statements or observations and drag that, they're basically dragging that down to the level of making crazy supernatural claims. And I think it's trying to muddy the conversation and make the total garbage basis of their apologetics and their religion seem a little bit more, I don't know, at least even by comparison.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Because when you grow up as a Christian, like when you hear like your, first of all, you're influenced to have magical thinking, right? You're influenced to accept that there are just some things in the world that just can't be explained by science or maybe beyond the physical realm. And so that leaves you more open to ideas that may not be verifiable, like in any good way, and that can actively be harmful. But also like specifically with the Christian, like raising of the dead narrative, like if in any other context, it does sound wacky. Like, but for some reason we do kind of like give credence to that. But yeah, for some reason, like we have to have the most expansive disproof in the world to talk about, Christian claims. But with everything else they say, it's just like accepted as fact. It is kind of an annoying thing you kind of have to deal with for sure.
Yeah. And I think this also goes along with the whole, what do you call that? Anti-supernatural bias thing. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah.
You look at history with an anti-supernatural bias, as if noticing that a wild claim about something magical happening deserves as much consideration or should be broken down in the same terms as anything else. So, and speaking of being pedantic, I recently spotted somebody who is or is posting as Psi 10 Brugenkate, which is kind of an interesting.
Oh, really? Not in this chat, I hope.
No, it was on Twitter. I thought he had just wandered off in shame, but whether it's him or just someone pretending to be him, there's somebody saying Psi 10 Brugenkate sounding things like, trying to define atheism as a religion, and anybody who can be led down a path of presuppositionalism will basically get their chain yanked for as long as they'll allow him.
Yeah, totally.
So
That's
anyway,
that might be him. I just want to point out the side 10 Bruggencate, as far as I understand, left because he looked at porn, right? That was his big thing. Was there more to it, or did he like? Okay, maybe we shouldn't talk about other people's drama. But my understanding was he looked at porn, and he was ashamed about it.
I thought there was something unseemly. I thought it was maybe. I thought it was something a little more substantial
Maybe
with
like
that,
cheating
like
on his
something.
wife or something like that. I thought it was a porn thing.
I thought there was some inappropriate relationship going on, but it might have been as simple as porn. The problem is, I think they were trying to keep it vague, and they just, I think, said something about there was some issue of. They cast it in terms not of infidelity or anything really that specific. It was just something like, what's the word?
Yeah,
something in terms of like unholiness or impurity. An issue of impurity, I think, is maybe the terminology they used.
Yeah, Service is rightfully asking who you guys talk about, and yeah, we shouldn't just bring up specific people's names and then talk about them for like a minute because it probably alienates a part of the audience. But we were talking about a fairly well-known Christian apologist named Cy 10 Bruggencate, who's famous for a lot of things, most notably presuppositionalism as a big part of their argument. But then kind of left the internet like a year or two ago because of the vague things that we're talking about here. But this is not the Apologist Drama channel. This is not Christian Apologist TMZ. This is Zodanza. And we're talking about resolutions. And I have my next one here for you, Zod. You ready to cleanse this palate? You ready for this?
Go ahead.
And I'm going to, again, this was Christians, but, rewriting a little bit for Christian apologists. Stop lending credence to Christian nationalists. I think this is the most important thing out of the three that I've chosen, because this is the one that people outside of the atheist community are really seeing. It has been a buzzword, right? Christian nationalist buzz phrase for a while now. It is happening. It is happening and has had real effects on people's lives outside of this whole stupid debate space. Sometimes I really think about what we're doing here on the internet, and I'm just like, are we actually moving the needle on anything? Are we changing people's minds? Are we just preaching to an echo chamber? And then I see the things that are happening, in the real space, right? Christians actively supporting and actively defending white nationalists, Christians supporting abortion bans, Christians supporting anti-LGBT legislation. And I realize I could be talking to 100 people on here for the rest of my life, but as long as I'm trying to do something to make a difference, that's going to be most important, because that's what I'm here to do. Christians, what are you here to do? If you're not changing the status quo, if you're not going against the world, then what are you even really doing? Do you not remember the Christian story? You're supposed to be against the world, right? Jesus calls you to be separated from them. And I'm seeing a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing recently, right? If you want to talk about fake Christians, I'm talking about people who really, really, really get the Bible wrong. I mean, talking about spinning it for just their whatever they want. Whether you think the Bible is a good basis for what things should be or not is beside the point. What I want to know is, like, what do you think is right or wrong in this situation? Because I don't want to be a part of a movement that white nationalists can feel comfortable in, right? I'm actively hostile towards the groups that are going to be actively hostile towards my friends and my family. Why doesn't Christian nationalism do the same? Why is it when we think of Christian nationalism, we really think about the worst kinds of people, right? That are actively making people's lives for the worst. Like I do not see any benefits to the movement. And unfortunately, if you're an apologist and you don't acknowledge this, I might consider you a complicit. It's such a huge deal right now. I mean, if you want to talk about, again, moving the needle, making an impact on things, Christian nationalism has been doing some fucking work, right?
Oh yeah.
And we got to do some work to fight it back. And if you're a Christian and you're not doing anything about it, I'm going to ask you why. Why not? What is so important about the way you're going to church and the way that you're talking to people that it doesn't address one of the biggest issues, like, of our time right now, at least in the United States? If it's not addressing that, what's your movement worth? Honestly, what are you trying to do? Anyway, there you go. That's me spitting on the pulpit there. for my third resolution. But there you go.
That's a good one. And I think it's a complex thing because I think I don't think there's a line between Christianity and Christian nationalism or normal Christianity and Christian nationalism. And I think some apologists do address it, but I think they do it for reasons different than us. I don't think they feel the urgent existential threat and want to react for that reason. I think they see it as something that they want to get the stink of off themselves.
Right.
And they're basically doing damage control for apologetics and Christianity. And they're at least aware enough to know that this looks bad or is a problem, and they don't want to be those people.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. Look, every apologist I've seen that's talking about this, Zod, has approached it from one angle, which is this biblical? Is what X is doing biblical? Is this legislation that's happening biblical? And personally, I don't give a shit about what's biblical. I give a shit about what's right. And I know that that's a more complicated issue because we all have different ideas of what right and wrong are. But I cannot, even if I was a Christian, why would I want to support something that I don't think is right? Right? That I don't think is going to be good for people at the end of the day. You can have a biblical justification for genocide. That doesn't mean that it's good. The biblical justifications, whether something's biblical or not, that doesn't mean anything to me. And the truth is, if Christian apologists really open their eyes, it doesn't mean anything to most people either, even Christians. So I'd rather apologists be more open and honest about that and address the real human cost to what the recent sort of political movements in this country have been having, rather than whether or not Donald Trump saying this is biblical or not, or I don't know, whatever. That's just so not even an issue to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's one inadequate thing about like inspiring philosophy. He's had this big "we're not Christian nationalists," or he's even gone so far as to say that Christian nationalism isn't Christian. And I did a few videos talking about that. And I think his big thing is he said the more people you get into church, the more you can combat Christian nationalism. And he had these really poorly rigged up cherry picked statistics that he thought indicated that. But I think the problem is you can't draw a line between the two, whether it's to kind of try to separate Christianity from Christian nationalism or whatever. I think there are varying forms and degrees of Christian nationalism. And I think a lot of people in any kind of fundamentalist or evangelical church, they're going to be somewhat aligned with Christian nationalism to some degree.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're on the full on one actually wanting to take everything over kick, but there is some element of the dog trying to chase the car, whether or not they really think they know what to do, whether they're going to catch it. And one of the things that I think highlighted this is on almost every stance, and I looked this up, on almost every stance associated with Christian nationalism or that would underpin Christian nationalism, people who were more highly involved in church, especially evangelical church, took those stances. So should the 10 Commandments be in courtrooms? Should there be prayer in schools? Should gay marriage be opposed? And really the only reason for that is going to be biblical. All those things are held by people in churches. So I think there is this undergirding of Christian nationalist thinking within churches. And I think part of the challenge is, even if they don't really ascribe to the Christian nationalist movement, or they're starting to be a little horrified by Trump or whatever, they still have those underlying goals just in terms of what they want society to look at because of their basic religion. And I think the two are so mired together, it becomes really challenging to deal with.
You're absolutely right. And I'm beating around the bush here because the reason why apologists in particular aren't going to ever cop out and say fully that this stuff is bad is because fundamentally at its root, Christian nationalists are just saying the quiet part out loud when it comes to Christianity's most dangerous ideas, right? Like it is just, hey, we're going to speak out and do the action that other people will passively defend because we can. And that's just how power works, I guess. And apologists are defending that institution of Christian nationalism by not addressing it and by not working on dismantling it within their communities. Like, that sounds like a big burden to carry. It's a big burden to carry. But Christian nationalism has done a fuck ton of things. And it's been boiling for years. It's not like it came out of nowhere. This is the end result, the end logical result of, if you hold some of these beliefs, what you can do to fight back when you feel like your moment in time is waning. And that includes disenfranchising people. That includes the violence that we've been seeing. It's not an accident of history that Christian nationalism is having its moment right now. It is the result of people not doing anything about it sooner. So my question to you, apologists hypothetically watching, is, are you going to do something about it? Or are you just going to go another year pretending like it doesn't exist, like I saw most apologists do this year? Food for thought. I don't know.
And yeah, if you've been in the evangelical sphere, and I remember this back to my childhood, the seeds for this were being planted very methodically for a long time.
Yeah.
Like there were always these goals for society, and evangelicals who are politically engaged and other kinds of Christian nationalists or conservatives, they know how to play the long game. And I think they know that what they're doing isn't popular except with their own crowd. And they spend years and years stirring these feelings of resentment within their circles, and then positioning stuff so that with a relatively small minority, they're positioned to take a lot of power. And they knew how to play games with the courts, how to gerrymander, all these other things. And I think we're kind of past the point of no return, at least for being in a bit of a long haul here for a while. But I guess the question you ask Christians that illustrates what I'd say is, do you think that we should live in a fully secular society? Like, do you think that we should be in a society where whatever religious convictions you have, those get set aside and are off the table when you're talking about politics? We engage in politics and set policy for purely secular, obviously evident reasons of personal freedom. And do you think that should be completely off the table? And most Christians, I think, would say no. At least most fundamentalist evangelical Christians, they think that Christian principles should be part of policy. So then the question becomes, if you think that's the case, where should you stop short of Christian nationalism? And I don't think they could give you an answer. And that's part of the problem.
And you know what the sad thing is? I don't think most Christians actually think Christian nationalism is a good idea. I think if you ask most Christians, would you rather live in a Christian nationalist society or a secular one? I think most would say a secular one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because the fundamentalists have power in our country specifically, and throughout the world, but in the US in particular, right? I mean, like they have the power to influence and make these changes. And they're not listening to guys like us. They're going to be listening to the folks that are in their church communities, who are going to be brave enough to speak out when they see injustice. And again, my question to apologists who are watching this, you have a platform just as big as us, if not bigger, right? Presumably, you definitely have a power to at least start a conversation, if not get involved with trying to stop what I deem to be a pretty evil force. But that's up to you. You can keep just talking about how the flood is real, I guess, or you can, try to make meaningful efforts to change society in positive ways. But the choice is always yours. And it will always be yours as long as you're a part of that community. You have a responsibility, just like we do too. Like, again, we call out the atheist community when they're full of shit all the time. I've never been shy of doing that. But I think that's a responsibility we bear as well, in order to be good stewards of our community, I guess. But I don't know. That's it. That was the big one. So there you go.
Yeah, the challenge is getting them to see it as a threat, or we're so entrenched in sides. And I think the rhetoric has been set up. I don't know if this is like how much of this is purely strategic and how much is just the way people think and entrench in their own side and whatever. But I think a lot of Christians see them as having to take a jump from their side to the other in some way. Like they're kind of abandoning their team. Even if they think something's gone too far, it's still pushing in the direction of Christian principles and trying to make this a Christian nation. And so much of this, I think part of why they won't tackle Christian nationalism head on is the rhetoric has been set up so that it doesn't even frame it that way in their mind. It's not, are you a Christian nationalist? It's, should this be a Christian nation? Should we be founded on Christian principles? Things like that. And you can't, I don't even think you can get their minds tracking with the actual nature of the problem and get them to try to be on the right side of something I think they might know is going too far. But really, in the end, we can say this affects us. We can say it affects the LGBTQ community. We can say it disproportionately affects minorities and poor people, which all that is true. And it's meant to do all that stuff. But in the end, I'm sorry, if you're a Christian, you're gonna be screwed in the end too. Like nobody wins a Christian nationalist fight. You're always going to be clawing on top of each other. With every shift in the winds, you're going to be at the mercy of somebody else. Like, I don't trust, like you said, the question of whether this is biblical, you don't care about that. And I think that's true. Not only do I not care just because I'm not religious and that text doesn't mean anything to me. One thing I've said over and over again is I don't trust conversations over theology or the Bible to dictate any kind of policy or any of the questions of morality or how we interact with each other. Everything has to be based on the evident reality of our interactions with each other. And that's just as much of a problem for Christians. Like, if I were a Christian, I would be terrified that somebody else is going to be in a position of power using their interpretation of scripture to dictate how I live my life. Mm-hmm. It would be the counsel. It would be the counsel in the Handmaid's Tale. If anybody's watched that, it's chilling, and they're all, even the leaders in that thing are all screwed. So anyway,
I have one more thing to share, but we can move on if you want to. Just got me thinking as you were talking there about my own story. Well, I've told this story before, but in the last days of my Christendom, let's call it that, I think I was an atheist in my heart, but I didn't really want to fully leave the church. I was chemo. I was physically in, mentally out, and I was still going to a church community, even though I didn't believe. And I found out that the church that I was kind of going to, I was kind of part of a group there, but wasn't like a full member of, was supporting an LGBT conversion therapy camp, and was going to have a host as a speaker that summer. And I remember talking to my small group leader saying, I don't think that this is right. And I don't think that there's anything to prove that this is right. And I think this is ultimately harming people. And I remember this was at a party when I was bringing this up, like a little party get together they had, and somebody put my hand, obviously, it's an uncomfortable topic for a general party. And somebody put my hand on my shoulder and said, maybe we can talk about this some other time. And wanted to end the conversation that way. And I think that was the moment that really turned me into a sort of regular atheist to an activist, because I realized in that moment that situation wasn't going to change, right? It just was going to happen. And that was them telling me to shut up and just to move on.
Yeah.
And I realized this idea I had of like changing the church from the inside doesn't work if I don't fully believe in the principles it's espousing anyway. So I left. I never stepped foot into church again outside of like Christmas with my family or whatever. But that moment really, I think, defined how I view activism, which is having a voice and speaking out is annoying to some people, yes, but absolutely necessary if you want to make that kind of change. And I know there's Christians that are working hard to try to change that internal culture of Christianity. I can't support you on that because I'm not a Christian, but I will say, if you have a sense of justice that's driving you towards recognizing a wrong and trying to correct it, I will encourage that, because that is what's going to change things. It's not going to be me and Zod and other atheists. We're too small of a power. Ultimately, it's going to be the regular people that are going to church, that are going to make the most impact, speaking out of these communities, or just, talking to your own friends and family. But yeah, I don't know. That's the only way things can change, is if you take accountability, and that includes you, apologists. taking accountability for the community as a whole and seeing what you can do. But anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I think we hit on something kind of good here, and it's taken the show in a different direction, and it's less celebratory than I'd envisioned. But this is important stuff to talk about, and this is a lot of the real meat of where we're at right now. And I think in that moment, you experienced kind of what I said. That person was probably confronted by a moment where something that they might have had a sneaking suspicion that was problematic, or at least that it bothered you for reasons that you felt really internally bad about for serious reasons. But for them to engage with that question in any meaningful way other than defending it would mean switching sides in some way. And that's a really huge hurdle to get over. And I don't know how to do that. The big thing is you can't have the conversation in terms of what's biblical, and you can't solve the problem using religion. You have to solve the problem using secular thinking. The analogy I've used before was the Aztecs. If the Aztecs were sacrificing people because they thought that was going to keep the sun rising, you can't trust a conversation over whether that actually keeps the sun rising or whether something else will make the sun rise. You have to recognize on some level that that's frivolous nonsense, that it at least isn't based in any kind of evidence. And you have to keep your conversation restrained to what are we doing to other people and how are our actions impacting people, until you can boil it down to, holy cow, this is horrifying. We can't be sacrificing people. Then you're not going to land on a predictably good place. Theology can take you anywhere, and it's usually going to take you where somebody wants it to go for not so good reasons or possibly manipulative reasons, or it's not going to let you guide yourself past your own prejudices and toward clear-headed thinking. So anyway,
when you have an institution defines what's right and wrong for you, it becomes hard to figure out how to motivate yourself. I really didn't understand how to be a good person outside of Christianity. I didn't understand what that meant. I thought it all came from God, right? But the morality that I understand today is that I'm going to do what I think is right, whether or not God is real, regardless, because that is how I am. That is how people are. You only do what you think is going to be what's best. It may serve different ends, but that's the way it is. So, that's going to be a tough conversation for Christians to have in their own community, as you said, because that's going to involve, one, secular philosophy, but also just a deconstruction effort that's already been brimming, for years now, and is only going to continue to grow. I'm talking, of course, about the Christian deconstruction movement that's been happening for a while now. But anyway, so that's 52 minutes of this show gone by on our first segment.
that was meant to be a playful, we'll bounce back and forth, slightly insulting things about.
And that's what happens when we don't coordinate as well as we could have. But it's a holiday season, folks. We still delivered for you today. So,
well, things got real, and we got some more serious conversation in there. You brought things more meaningful to this than I had anticipated, and so we just changed the nature of today's episode a little bit, and it became a little bit of a bummer, but a bummer in a way that's important to talk about.
As a person, this is what happens when you get a septum piercing. Suddenly, your whole personality changes. Nobody likes you anymore. It's really
hey, should we lighten things up by watching a silly video about?
Oh yeah. Let's
New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it.
Okay, so this is called "What Sort of New Year's Resolution Should a Christian Make?" Keep in mind where you think Christians would go, how they'd like to change their life, and I guess we'll just watch this and see how it goes.
What sort of New Year's resolution should a Christian make? The practice of making New Year's resolutions goes back over 3,000 years to the ancient Babylonians. There is just something about the start of a new year that gives us the feeling of a fresh start and a new beginning. In reality, there is no difference between December 31st and January 1st. Nothing mystical occurs at midnight on December 31st. The Bible does not speak for or against the concept of New Year's resolutions. However, if a Christian determines to make a New Year's resolution, what kind of resolutions should he or she make?
What kind of thing do you think they're going to say, Dan, or anybody in the chat?
It's like Listen, you can't even better yourself without having Christianity tell you what to do about it. It's great. Like, hey, I want to be better at Microsoft Excel this year. I'm sorry. Does the Bible support Microsoft Excel? Yeah, that's what I thought. Go be a better wife, Karen, or whatever.
YouTube Punk says, "Be washed daily in the blood of Christ." Read your Bible more. There you go. That's probably I love this though. This kind of goes along with what we were saying. It's almost as if the Spirit of God were guiding our planning for this thing today. You're talking about they need everything to be based on the Bible. This thing immediately goes to, well, what does the Bible say about New Year's resolutions? Not any kind of intelligent conversation about, well, does picking the beginning of the year to change your personal habits help, or whatever.
Yeah.
We also have love God more this year. Probably give more money to the church. Oh, here's this. Along with giving more money to the church, step over the homeless before you do it. I think that's fair.
True.
Rosary daily. Drink more Ovaltine for some reason. Anyway, let's watch a little more. Huh?
Yeah, for sure.
See what they say.
Common New Year's resolutions are commitments to quit smoking, to stop drinking, to manage money more wisely, or to spend time with family. By far, the most common New Year's resolution is to lose weight, in conjunction with exercising more and eating more healthily. These are all good goals to set. However, 1 Timothy 4:8 instructs us to keep exercise in perspective.
What'd you say?
Where's the stats? Where's the citation? Citation needed for that. They said weight was the most common. I believe them, first of all. If you just told me on the street, hey, this is the most common one, I'd say, yeah, that sounds right. But I appreciate it when videos have citations. That's all.
Yeah, Christians just tend to go on if something seems intuitive.
Yeah, I guess so.
Sorry to say I can't send y'all any super chats until next year. Look like you're just gonna have to wait.
Oh man. Andrew Sword, thank you so much. Andrew Sword has donated multiple times now, and we really appreciate it. This is a fun thing for us to do, and it's so nice when we get to read super chats and thank our patrons. So thank you guys.
Quit having casual sex.
No, never.
For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. The vast majority of New Year's resolutions, even among Christians, are in relation to physical things. This should not be. Many Christians make New Year's resolutions to pray more, to read the Bible every day, and to attend church more regularly.
So you shouldn't make resolutions about anything real, I think is what I hear him saying.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, I'm pretty sure half the Bible, especially the Old Testament, but a lot of them are just rules against doing physical things. And supposedly that makes you better with God. So it seems like you should be on the right track if you're I need to stop doing these things. But okay, you tell me, video man.
If you change actual habits that have actual demonstrable consequences for your life, you're just being worldly.
Worldly, yeah.
These are fantastic goals.
Only matters
However,
after you die.
These New Year's resolutions.
Sorry, what was that?
Think about the shit that only matters after you die. That's what you need to focus on. That's unironically
exactly
the take, but
fail just as often as the non-spiritual resolutions, because there is no power in a New Year's resolution. Resolving to start or stop doing a certain activity has no value unless you have the proper motivation for stopping or starting that activity.
So there's no power in a New Year's resolution coming from people who think there's a power before throwing yourself before Jesus and thinking you're instantly changed.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Zod, because it's you get baptized and supposedly your whole life is supposed to change. But you can't even do a New Year's resolution. What's happening?
Christianity is basically New Year's resolution, the religion, except it's whenever you want instead of,
Damn. Evangelicalism. Yeah, for sure. That's facts right there, Zod. Damn.
There's no sense of the fact that changing yourself is a long, difficult process and that you want to think intelligently and incrementally about how you do it. It's all just instantly get weepy and sorrowful about your actions, go to Jesus and cry, and then he makes you a new creation. Have you ever been told you need to be a new creation?
Yeah, absolutely. And which, on a more serious note, right? I think this is why America in particular probably struggles with certain mental health issues and recovery issues and stuff, because you probably got brought up in the culture that says, well, you're supposed to be saved and just be able to do it and do everything. It's like
Yeah.
but everything we've ever learned about how people work shows that that's just not the case. Like, there's a reason why cold turkey is statistically the worst way to quit something. Like, it's just not a way that people work, but it's the way we want it to work, because we wish we had more control over ourselves than we really do. But a lot of times we don't, and that's just not a fact that Christianity wrestles with very well. It's usually like you have to do it because God says so, or you're struggling with it because you're struggling with sin, so you gotta forgive. There's metaphysical things happening.
Well, and it's tempting to think, number one, it's just the narrative. You go to Jesus and he makes you clean and you're all better.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, there is something in having that kind of emotional momentary experience that you think at that moment, when
Mm-hmm.
you're at that church retreat or you're in that worship service, you think you suddenly want to change and be a totally different person. And you can't imagine moving forward why you would go back to doing anything else, because you're on that emotional high.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it just keeps Christians cycling between, sin, cry, repent over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I remember when I was younger, I hadn't done a homework assignment or something. And of course, they shamed me more than was probably appropriate, because they saw it as a deliberate sin thing against God and against my teachers, who were the God-given authority. But I remember sitting in the office, and the teacher and my parents were there with me, and the teacher was saying something about God making me a new creation. And looking back, there was no way that I was going to say any kind of prayer or make anything right with God and change my study habits. Like, that's the reason why a kid doesn't do their homework, and building those habits is a complicated thing. I mean, I should take accountability for the fact that I wasn't doing that at that moment. But you take accountability and then try to recognize why you actually didn't do it, and work to change the actual core habits, not just think you're a changed person because you came to Christ. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
True. I'm reading this book, Zod, and don't worry, it's censored for the camera. Oh gosh, wow, the screen is not liking it. I'm holding up an invisible book right now. It says F feelings. It's very good. And it's basically just that. I mean, it's the cut and dry of it is this, that look, people are messy machines, and you have to do your best, but that's all you can do. Like, there's also some people that are just born a certain way and are going to have a struggle with doing certain things for the rest of their lives. And there's no magical cure for that. You can't just pray some of that away, right? I'm talking specifically like alcoholism, for example. There are some personalities and brain chemistries that are just predisposed for that. Somebody who is struggling with alcohol is going to struggle way harder than I am for the rest of my life, because that is how they are built, and that doesn't change. When you suddenly are sober, and then everything is, your want to drink is going to be less. Like, that's not what's reported from a lot of people. And I'm using that as an example, of course, but Christianity is supposed to be the self-help religion, as you mentioned, right? It is the New Year's resolution religion of, like, if you pray to God and get right with him, all of your things are going to be better in life. And you're not going to struggle the same way, but you are. And it's just a delusion. So I don't know.
I just came upon, it's from like a year ago, but I came upon a Theremin Trees video, which was really good. If anybody hasn't seen them, I think they're like a therapist or something like that, and they talk about issues of personal change and looking back your past that largely goes to growing up in a religious upbringing, but it also deals with just generally trauma and stuff in general, and dealing with kind of abusive people. But I put in the chat a video I just stumbled upon today, and it was about overcoming malignant shame. And it's the difference between shame and guilt. One is like piling everything upon you as a person, how it sets you off being defensive and not actually processing the issue, where guilt is recognizing that an action you took should make you feel bad so that you want to methodically change it. And I think that's it really did a great job of capturing the difference between just intelligently assessing and trying to build on your actions versus seeing yourself as a gross sinner and wanting to change everything about yourself.
Yes. The Theremin Trees is good. We stand Themin Trees on Zodanza. Go watch Themin Trees after this. They're great.
Yeah, if you've dealt with just like a rough religious background or any kind of rough background, I'm not saying this as like I'm a qualified therapist or anything, or get help if you need it, but that's a really good one to watch, to listen, or to process your experiences.
For example, why do you want to read the Bible every day? Is it to honor God and grow spiritually? Or is it because that you've just heard that it's a good thing to do? Why do you want to lose weight? Is it to honor God with your body? Or is it for vanity, to honor yourself? Philippians 4.
First of all,
those sounds like the two reasons.
That is exactly why I go to the gym. I want to look hot. I don't even care. I've said this before, much to my girlfriend's chagrin. I don't even care about the health benefits of working out. I just want to look good and like feel good. That is it. Working out could make me worse health wise, and I'd probably still do it if it still came with the benefit of just looking the way I want to as a person. So that's just, yeah, vanity. Absolutely. What do you mean? What other thing is it?
I just love how it's. Hey, let me back up just a touch here.
For example, why do you want to read the Bible every day? Is it to honor God and grow spiritually? Or is it because that you've just heard that it's a good thing to do? Why do you want to lose weight? Is it to honor God with your body? Or is it for vanity, to honor yourself?
Like, these are such dumb questions. They can't even get the one about honoring God or reading the Bible more right. Like, it's not just you heard it or it's to honor God.
Has anyone ever... So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Zod.
No problem.
But has anyone ever started a gym plan and gone to a personal workout trainer and been like, what are your goals for this? And he said, well, I just want to honor my body for God more. Has that conversation ever happened? No. I refuse to believe it. No, dude, you want to work on your biceps and your delts, and like maybe you want to get your hammies looking good. Like that is the reason. It's not who is like left-handed Jedi brought this up. Honor your God with your body. Creepy AF. It's true. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Doesn't mean anything. It's very weird.
But like they can't get. See, I love how much this is just like they can't even comprehend making intelligent progress in your personal habits. Like even the Bible, maybe a Christian just thinks reading the Bible is a good idea. Like it has to be either because you're honoring God or it's something you heard, or like losing weight or taking care of your body. I want to do things to take care of my body. I'm in a different place than you, but I don't really care if I look all ripped or anything like that. And honestly, I'm at the age that would look a little silly on me, but I kind of want to make sure that, I don't have skyrocketing cholesterol, or that, there's like more practical things going on.
That's true.
Than just vanity versus honoring God with my body.
That's also true. But first of all, Zod, you're not gonna look silly if you put on some extra muscle. I'm just saying, if you want to be that guy, be that guy. Don't discourage yourself. Don't put yourself down, Zod. That's all I'm saying.
No, I personally
is 2024 the era of buff Zod? Can we get hashtag buff Zod going in the chat? I want to see that. I want to see Zod getting those gains and becoming Zaddy. You know what I'm saying?
My body cannot handle getting buff at this point.
Listen. Hear him, folks. He's tearing himself down. It's that self-confidence. We got to build him up. Hashtag Zaddy. I'm not tearing myself down. I live with my back every day and with my knees every day. I'm being selfish for my own, pain and suffering. But nothing,
no, I seriously
nothing that some good knee sleeves and horse stimulant can't fix.
No, I honestly don't like the look of someone my age who looks like they work out all the time. There's just something undignified and weird about it. I don't know. You look like you're trying too hard and probably a creep.
That's what it is. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I won't push the hashtag anymore, but
okay.
Only in my private Twitter, the Twitter of my mind. Will that be?
Philippians 4:13 tells us, I can do everything through him who gives me strength. John 15:5 declares, I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If God is the center of your New Year's resolution,
such
it has a chance
intelligence
for
insights on
success,
personal
depending on
change.
your commitment to it. If it is God's will for something to be fulfilled, he will enable you to fulfill it. If a resolution is not God-honoring and or is not in agreement with God's word, we will not receive God's help in fulfilling that resolution. So, what sort of New Year's resolutions should a Christian make?
So does it matter then? Because you're going to do whatever God wants you to do and not do what he doesn't want you to do, right?
Was that the message? I'll be honest, it kind of turned into a nothing burger for me. I didn't even think that it really
That's
was
basically
saying
what this is. Well, I guess this doesn't mean like just float and not try anything, because I guess you probably have to have some kind of resolve, but it would, I don't know, I would kind of just feel hopeless and not want to try if it was just a dice roll on I'll be 100% successful if it's what God happens to want me to do, or it'll just fall flat on its face if it's not his will.
Yeah, to be honest, what I was thinking when I was watching that was, I'm really tired of like watching people give that kind of self-help advice in this kind of packaged quality that isn't like you and me like talking on a stream, right? But
Yeah.
like if you're gonna like make a professional video and you're not like a qualified expert in literally any of the topics you talk about, I just don't even know why I would listen to your opinion on how to make my life better in any meaningful way. You know what I mean? I'm tired of listening to non-experts on this thing. There's a whole self-help book market out there full of people like this. This is just that in video form. So
yeah, unsighted, unqualified self-help I don't care for in and of itself. Once you start citing the supernatural for what's going to make me fail or succeed, I am that much more tuned out. But maybe they're going to help us learn how to know what God's will is for your resolutions. So maybe it's not as blind as I thought. Let's see.
Maybe.
Here are some suggestions. 1. Pray to the Lord for wisdom in regards to what resolutions, if any, he would have you to make. 2. Pray for wisdom as to how to fulfill the goals God gives you. 3. Rely on God's strength to help you. 4. Find an accountability partner who will help you and encourage you. 5.
Love it.
Don't become discouraged with occasional failures. Instead, allow them to motivate you further.
So a couple of those were just literally ask God.
Yeah,
right?
kind of ask God in multiple ways. 5 is
ask him for ask him for wisdom, ask him for the strength to keep going. Find a covenantized buddy.
Find a covenantized buddy. Accountability partners. Oh man. We need to have a whole Zodanza dedicated to accountability buddies and just the lore that comes behind that. I got some accountability buddy stories. And I'm sure you do too. Oh wait, you told some of those stories. I almost forgot. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah.
Yeah, but this number 5 is strangely like coherent, sensible advice. Good job, guys.
Yeah, no, that one's the best one
And
so
6.
far.
Don't become proud or vain, but give God the glory. Psalm.
No, I don't think I will. I'm sorry. Was God drinking 40 grams of whey protein, to get these gains every day at 6 a.m. at the Gold's Fitness? Was he lifting heavy? Was he spotting me? No, I wasn't doing those things either, first of all. But in my hypothetical scenario where I'm super ripped, he wasn't doing that either.
Sounds like Paula G's heard of accountability partners.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. Anyway, if God's not hidden in the morning with me getting those gains, why does he get the glory? That's all I'm saying.
Oh, well, here's another way of looking at it. Like, I recognize when I do things, but you can do that and also have a sensible perspective on that. Like, I don't know. You can take steps to make accomplishments without being proud or vain, right?
Yes. I mean,
like you can recognize.
Go ahead.
We all do things in our lives. We all get up out of bed, take care of our jobs, apply for work when we need to, interact with our families, meet personal goals. we all do these things, and recognizing that comes from you and how it comes from you is a really important way to keep it going. It doesn't mean that you think you're special just because you take care of the daily business or life, or even extend yourself and do something maybe a little extraordinary. You can do that without having this childish sense of that, oh, I'm a great person, I accomplish big things. So I don't like that they shoot that down. But also, I've very rarely heard somebody give God the glory without it sounding more vain than just sensibly recognizing what your accomplishments are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm one of those people too that's like, look, if you're a millionaire and you give half your money to charity and you do it purely because you want to feel good about yourself, I say go for it. I don't think that's bad. I think those people need that money. And if it gives you an ego boost, that's just a plus, honestly. So like, yeah, does it become annoying for some people? Sure. But I mean, are you ultimately harming anybody besides yourself? Not really, except for the people you're annoying, I guess, by being self-centered in that way. But like, people go to the gym. I mean, we're using the gym metaphor pretty hard here. At least I am. But like, people go to the gym because, like, for two main reasons: they want to be healthy and they want to look a certain way. That's part of the thing to do it. I don't know how you incorporate that, your gym routine, with your Christ routine. Now I do say that, but I did go to college, and I did go to a college group, and I did go to the gym with my Christian bros, and we did lift weights and then study the Bible afterwards. So I guess there is a thing for it. I don't know how it works out theologically, but there's a culture. It does exist. So anyway.
Yeah, Shannon's reiterating what I said. Giving God the glory is just a way to humble brag about your accomplishments.
It kind of is. Just say you're white and you're privileged, like I do. And then
well, a big part of this is there's a certain pretense that just because you shoved a human impulse off a step, that it doesn't exist anymore, or you're not operating on the exact same impulse for the exact same reasons. Like you said, if a millionaire gives away half their money just because it makes them feel good, is that selfish? Maybe to some extent, but it's selfishness in a good way, that you've achieved some form of self-actualization, or that you get good feelings from altruistic behavior. Technically, I think if you take it that far, everything we do is selfish. It's just some things are selfish for good reasons, or you show consideration for others in achieving your own personal feelings of satisfaction.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away because you're a Christian. You just added another step where now you're giving glory to God, because giving glory to God provides some level of self-actualization or a feeling of satisfaction, or that you've completed some step in righteousness, and that makes you feel good. So it's all getting to the same place, and Christianity doesn't change that. And that's what I wish that stuff like this had any inkling toward thinking their way toward the beginning of an insight on.
Yep.
But they don't. It's all just packaged pablum,
Yeah,
basically.
You're
37,
right.
5 through 6 says, "Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun." Got questions? The Bible has answers, and we'll help you find them.
All right. Yay. That was pretty milquetoast. Did anybody go to Google and was like, I want to make some New Year's resolutions, but I don't know if I'm doing it for the right reasons. I don't know if they're the right Christian reasons. No, that's not a thing. A New Year's resolution. So the Christians will rant and rave about, Christmas not being a Christian holiday, whatever. New Year's, pretty much everybody is neutral on New Year's. Everybody is kind of like, yeah, a holiday where you want to make yourself better. Kind of a cool thing to do, even if it doesn't work out 99% of the time. And even here, it's like, no, you gotta make it about God. Like, really? You can't do anything for yourself? I don't know. Very sad.
Yeah. It's like you said, it is a nothing burger. It is just vapid nonsense. And this is what drives me crazy, is that Christians think this kind of just prepackaged, easy answer, nothing, like milquetoast nonsense. They think there's something like, I don't know, there's something righteous or something laudable about thinking that way, One thing I struggled with, even when I was a Christian, even when I was a deeply involved Christian, even when I was running the Christian school, people who thought in these really simplified emotional ways and took these shortcuts, if I tried to be a little insightful and think a little bit to the heart of the problem, they would just look at me like I was trying to do it in my own strength, or that I was somehow just shitting on their having faith and relying on God. And that's just really poisonous thinking. It drives me up the wall because partly I have flashbacks to it when I was a Christian. I had a lot of tension over that.
I mean, I don't know. If somebody says I did this resolution because and God helped me through this thing. I mean, on one level, I want to say, okay, whatever. But on another level, I want to say, look, if you don't count the real blessings in your life, the fact that you may be part of a economic class that helps you get the things that you need, or talk to the right people, or find the right resources, then yeah, maybe you're discounting what actually got you there. But I don't know. I've definitely met people in my lifestyle who are like, I changed and did this thing because of God. And there's always like a hint of skepticism in me. Maybe that's a bad thing, but like I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I tried that for me. Didn't really work. Maybe it's just a certain personality that gets a kick out of that. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody change like instantly because of God. I don't think I've seen God change anything in anybody. At the very best, church and community can provide a structure and a direct form of command to people who need that. But within that structure, I think it's more of a gradual change of personal resolve for more internalized secular reasons, even if they don't want to put it in that language.
Right. Yeah.
But I've seen so many people sin, cry, repent all the time, thinking that, God changes them, and it's rough.
Yeah, I agree.
I think a big thing about Christians not liking New Year's resolutions, and it's a lot the same reason they don't like secular music, is it takes something they want to do and is just another worldly way of doing it.
It takes the focus away from God. That's why.
Yeah, and it's just like Christians want an instant change at a specific marker. New Year's resolutions try to do the same thing, but not Christian wise. And it almost points out the folly of what they're trying to do and is just a substitute.
I agree.
So anyway, it's, what is it, 10:22 where you live?
10.
So
22.
We were going to have a little bit of like chill out and retrospect about the year. We're probably a little crunch for time, what with Dan being a kid with his bedtime.
Yeah, we're a little crunch for time. And you know what? 2023, no, I don't know, kind of a meh year for me. That's not true. Some good things in my personal life, but also some shit things, like being hit by a drunk driver and suffering through major depression and anxiety from that. But like besides that, the rest of my year is pretty okay. It is the groundbreaking year for Zodanza, so that's a pretty cool thing. I got a new job this year that's the exact same thing I was doing before, but I got paid more, so that's cool. Yeah, I don't know, kind of okay all around. What about you?
Yeah, this year was good for me. I don't know, home life and work is about the same thing. We have a nice steady thing going day by day. I got a kid in high school and a kid finishing up junior high, so life's always evolving. I have two adults beyond them, but we're growing out of the child phase. YouTube, it's been a fun adventure like always. I never thought that this year I would what I thought would be a basic response video on some just frivolous little remarks about Bible and Jesus would turn into an investigation that would set J. Warner Wallace off on a damage control tour.
Oh yeah.
I never saw that coming. I didn't think that we would like get the Zodanza thing or whatever we were going to call this off the ground, but we just sat down and had a conversation and said, hey, let's do this. Practice a few months, and
we asked God for wisdom, and here we are.
And whatever it makes you think about us, what we're doing now is the result of actual practice and planning. So
that's true. That is true. We didn't rely on Jesus for this one, consciously anyway. Yeah. That J. Warner Wallace thing, is awesome, and maybe one of my favorite things from you that you've ever put out. Just the saga, the ongoing saga, I might add, of I don't know, the back and forth happening there. It's pretty
Yeah.
great. Go subscribe to Zod's channel. If you're somehow watching this and not subscribed to Zod, go subscribe to Zod for maybe future updates. If
Yeah, like there's 1,000 people here that probably mostly came from our, a lot more than that subscriber basis. So you're probably there already, but yeah, if not, go ahead, check it out, watch it if you want. Yeah, I love that too. Not many people watch those. J. Warner Wallace videos don't get a lot of traction view-wise, but you're not always there for views, and I found those very deeply satisfying. And I love the fact that he watched it. I have friends who will just like ping me all of a sudden and say, hey, he's talking about you again. He won't mention me by name, but he's going around saying the same little things about, well, you could work cold cases without being a cold case detective. And
yeah. I'm glad that you have had that impact on the world, in which a Christian apologist writer now has a bug in his brain, and that bug is named Prophet Zod, and that's something you should be proud of, Zod. Congratulations.
I am you watch these kinds of people and they're full of BS, and you wish something could be done. And obviously nothing dramatic is going to happen. They're not going to go, like I said in my first video about him, he's not going to go running off the stage in shame, but the fact that he recognized that he got called out in his BS and he needs to make some feeble little excuses for it, that's as much satisfaction as you could ever possibly get.
Yeah. Who says this YouTube thing's a waste of time? You can make people change somehow through the internet. I love it.
Shannon said her favorite Zod video is the Mike Winger takedown. I'm not sure which one, because I've dealt with him a lot. Is that the one
which one? Because you've done multiple Mike Wingers, but yeah.
I would guess it's the one where I basically insinuated that he's gaslighting by showing him side by side with the Knowing Better clips. But yeah, he's, Mike is kind of a gift that keeps on giving in terms of chances for response videos. Just did one today where he tried to make excuses for hell and stuff.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm very curious to see what apologists will be doing this next year, just because of the changing of the political climate. I wonder how much will be addressed and how much will just keep on trucking like nothing's happening. But I have my own thoughts, which is they're not going to say anything much of substance at all. But hey,
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
AR says the Zod remedial Bible lesson music slaps. That is actually a Christian rapper. I don't know if this has come up before, but that's Bible Break by Stephen Riley. He's actually a Christian rapper. I had a thought and I missed it. But
well, while you're thinking, Apologia has asked me, what are Dan's personal YouTube plans for 2024? So this will be 5 years of me doing Truth Wanted now, which has been obviously the project I've stuck the longest with. Like what people don't know is that I was on like 2 other podcasts before Truth Wanted, and I've like tried and started other projects since then that haven't panned out. The thing is, it's just like a lot of YouTube is just being lucky and just like saying, oh, this is a thing that's going to keep sticking. Like it is like work that gets put into it. But Zodanza seems to be sticking. So definitely would want to invest more time into this. Been thinking though, like I've been kind of off of the internet for about as much as I can be the last month or 2 since the accident, and it's been kind of a good experience. Like, oh, maybe I don't have to like be online all the time and show my face and say things and keep up with current events and stuff, and maybe I can just like have a personal life, which is like kind of a thing. So I don't know what's in the cards for me this next year. Maybe it'll be even more projects that I won't have time for that I'll just try to keep up with. More than likely, it's probably going to be helping out my boy Zod here with making Zodanza a really cool thing. So yeah, that is what it is. Oh, and also, Talk Heathen I also host on as well, but I don't produce for Talk Heathen, so I'm not as involved in the making of. But yeah, Zodanza, it's just me and Zod, nobody else. And if there's no Zod or me, there's no Zodanza, really. It'd be weird if like what if would happen, Zod, if like let's say you and I had a fight a year from now, and then I kicked you, somehow you got the rights or something, you kicked me off, or I kicked you off, and then the next group of people have a fight, and then that new person kicks you off or me off, and then it's just two people who aren't named Zod or aren't named Dan doing Zodanza. It's a real ship of Theseus. Would it still be Zodanza at that point?
Are you telling the story about something else that I'm not going to mention the channel or names of?
No, not at all. I'm just saying hypothetically. It's like what if Queen didn't have, I don't know, like all these bands, right? Like what if all the members change out? At what point do you lose the thing? I guess what happens with the Danza? I don't know.
It would be called Zodshanza.
Damn. Dan was too quick with that one. Dan's got plans. I'm not ready for that.
You know, according to Dan, we have big things planned for this year. You know, we want to maybe have some other people on from time to time.
True.
Just like make this a giant party. And so you've only seen the beginning. These are like the baby steps of what this thing is going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know that's true. And I'm not really.
No. This is how, you know what? We've been talking about resolutions. This is how real resolutions work. It's hype up something so much that you feel pressure to fulfill on the obligation. And then you either swim or sink, and that's it. So, you know, either we get the Sam Bankman-Friedman treatment and just defraud everybody on how amazing the show is going to be, or we actually pull through and make the greatest Thursday night live stream of all time.
Wait, what I hear you saying is that we should have a GoFundMe for things that we have no intention of doing.
That too. Yeah, that's implied. Yeah, 100%. That's just the grift, baby. That's YouTube, you know?
You know, I always want to be growing and improving, because that's what I compulsively like to do. And I would, you know, like to see big things happen. But also, Dan has kind of helped me come down and be in a chill place about this being a thing we hang out and do and enjoy it for what it is. And I really just love this being the time where I just come here and see some common or some familiar faces and names in the chat and just hang out. It's been a blast. So,
yeah,
you know, for that reason alone, 2023 has just been a magical year, and nobody's going to say otherwise. Even though Dan seems to think the year that we started Zodanza was meh.
No. That is a milestone in the year for sure. But you can't judge a year by an outlier, Zod. You know, that's just one in a big pool of.
But does that mean I can't give you shit about what you said?
I'm saying that's a bath bomb in a public pool full of school kids' urine. You know, it's the one good thing out of a year that, like, you know, could have been swimming in another body of water, is all I'm saying.
All right, that's fair. I just want to point out a few channels that I thought were cool this year. Paul made this on his channel. He put on a list, and I guess he does this a lot. He put on a list of new YouTubers. So go check that out. I would really encourage you to do that, because I think the more voices you get familiar with, the better. Just elevate this conversation. I think one really important thing we do, we're not going to hugely change policy, but I think we put ideas out there and normalize them so that they can at least get out into the air. And more than anything, when some young person in the middle of the Bible Belt starts to have questions, they have a place where they can go online and see that people with those same questions are normal people and that it's okay. And I think that's always going to be an important thing, and will probably be more important than ever. But that said, check out his list. It's on his community tab. But a couple that were on there that I specifically remember and have interacted with a little bit. Christy Burke, I remember I had responded to Daily Disciple when he did TikTok of her, and she has a channel that's just blown up and is almost as big as my main channel in like almost no time. She's really cool, so I listened to her. Skeptics and Scoundrels. I don't think he's put out a lot, but he's really cool. He's been around here a little bit, and so he seems like he's off to a good start. Mindshift, I see somebody's actually mentioning him. I mentioned him, and we've talked a little bit. He has like some really insightful things into the minds of evangelicals and how I don't know, just how they think and how you kind of process your time coming out of that. And I've enjoyed listening to him. And then one especially fun one, especially in terms of this whole J. Warner Wallace thing, is a guy called Sergeant Skeptic. I would check him out. He's a retired police sergeant who just really takes J. Warner Wallace to task, both for his methodology with the Bible and also how he tries to co-opt the language of police work. And I'm really hoping to hear more from him and hopefully interact with him some, because I think he has a really unique angle for taking the piss out of Wallace. So I think that's just awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, I also recommend that list of people. We kind of said literally before the show, hey, I'm going to do some YouTubers I want to recommend. And I was like, oh, okay. I did not prepare a list. So I don't have a list, but a lot of those people are folks I'd recommend anyway. I'm going to suggest one more person who is not like super new, but I think is underrated. And I think has been popping off a little bit more. Blatant Blatheist, if you guys have seen him. He was on Truth Wanted again recently. Really cool dude. Really, really funny. A lot of his videos are like just straight up sketches. I highly recommend checking out his work. And that's the one that I want to talk about, I guess. But also check out the ones Zod has mentioned as well. If you want to see another one, I'll do one more. My girl Sydney Davis Jr. has been popping off this year in a big way, and I'm going to be doing a collaboration with her in January called Skeptics University, where she's featuring some other skeptic people who you should also check out, in part of a series of panels. And I have mentioned as a potential guest for Zodanza, maybe I think would be really cool. So shout outs to Sydney, and yeah, everybody that's doing everybody that's doing the Lord's work out there. Props to you.
Yes, I'm totally on board with that. And I appreciate you sharing those. It's nice that you were able to come up with this off the top of your head with me mentioning it just immediately before the show and also over Messenger last night. So I appreciate that.
The thing is, Zod, the audience didn't have to know that. And the fact that you brought it to their attention now kind of ruins sort of the magic. So that's on you for doing that, I guess. I don't know.
Part of the magic of this show is just me being shitty to you.
I guess that's the appeal for some people.
Yeah,
for you, for sure.
That's really what people come here for. Is just to watch me make like very thinly veiled passive aggressive dad remarks to you.
Yeah.
To be totally fair, I'm like a manic, frantic, throwing out ideas person, and Dan can't sit there and absorb them all. So when I say this, I'm really not being serious. I'm teasing him with half the story just to be funny. So
low key, I forgot you did. I didn't check your message from last night until today, and so I think maybe that's where I got it confused. But
it's all good. It's all good.
But anyway,
Paul mentioned that Zodanza is now in the 2023 New Skeptic Channel playlist.
Oh yeah, even though neither of us are new at this point, but this project is, so I guess that counts.
I didn't even take that as an oversight because I don't consider us new. But thank you very much. That was really cool.
Yeah, thank you. And somebody correctly pointed this out. Somebody said Mr. Deity. Mr. Deity was doing stuff. Like Mr. Deity was selling his videos on DVD. Like that's how long Mr. Deity's been doing this stuff. Back when like YouTube ad revenue wasn't a thing. So everybody had to make their money by having a separate website, which I love me some Mr. Deity, but I'm saying he's not new. That man's been on the grind. That man has more experience than like the both of us combined. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he I think he traces back to like me first poking around in internet atheism.
Yeah. But,
Paul and Shannon are also bugging us about moderation and wrenches and stuff. So, maybe sometime we'll give you those, or, you could be on the show or something.
This is literally like your second time here. Okay. Cool your jets. All right. It'll get there. All right. Paul, We love you, Paul. Paul was here before. Maybe we'll give it to Paul. I will give it to Paul before Shannon just to spite her. But it'll probably happen at the same time, if I'm being honest.
Shannon just feels awkward because she has wrenches to every channel except this one.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
All right. Well, Dan, should I mercifully let you go to bed? We've let this one go long.
I think so. I got one more work day, but I got Monday off for New Year's, so that's cool. And I'm gonna be enjoying it this weekend. Need some R&R after this year. So yeah.
All righty. What's our tagline to close off the show?
Oh, great question. I'm so glad you asked me for the tagline so that I
am too.
Continuously talking to the microphone as I continue to think of a new crazy thing to say for the end of the night broadcast. If J. Warner Wallace isn't on your mind, what are you doing really? That's it. That's the tagline. More of a fortune cookie one. That one. But that's it. That's what I chose. You got a better one? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, end the stream. Zod.
All right.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Thanks, patrons. Thanks, super chatters. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. We love you all.
Zodanza.
We'll see you in a year. Ha 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 ha.
Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón a la República Dominicana, la casa del merengue y la casa de la bachata. Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón a la República Dominicana, la casa del merengue y la casa de la bachata. La 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 la, la casa del merengue. La 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 la, y la casa de la bachata.